Right. Welcome everyone to this special council meeting on Thursday, December 1st, 2022 for the budget. That's what it's about here. So we also have some items of special interest and setting a public hearing, but we'll get to that now. And the item of special interest is, do we say a pledge here on this?
No, but
No.
we should have a motion to approve the agenda.
Oh, thank you. All right. Has everyone looked at the agenda? And is there a motion to approve the agenda?
It took me a long time to read it, but.
Hours.
Yep.
Okay, moved and seconded? Okay, very good. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right. All right, items of special interest. Paul, I'll turn the time over to you for this.
Sure, I figured I'd give everybody a quick update on the audit that we're doing. That seems to be progressing now. I just talked with Sage earlier this week. They've been able to kick it off and get it started. I've provided them some updates. So that is slowly moving along, but is in process. And as part of that, I just wanted to move that we retain Steve Ryer to provide technical assistance related to audits. And just like the one where we did this audit, or just to get this audit started as part of the motion, I'd ask the council authorize the chair and or vice chair to sign letters of agreement or engagement related to the motion.
I'll second that motion.
I will, yeah, I was going to say I'll second that too.
Okay, thank you. Been moved and seconded that we approve, how did you say that? Thank you. Retain Steve Ryer to provide technical assistance related to audits. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right. Very good. Okay, we are looking to set a public hearing for December 6, 2022, ordinance number 2022-35, an ordinance adjusting the salaries of elected officers.
Can we do that the 6th, or don't we need more time?
We would need a full week of notice, so we need to set that on the meeting after the 6th.
So it'd be the 13th?
13th.
Thank you.
All right.
So,
I move that we set the public hearing for December 13th, ordinance 2022-35, an ordinance adjusting the salaries of elected officers.
I'll second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded that we set a public hearing for December 13th, 2022, ordinance 2022-35, an ordinance adjusting the salaries of elected officers. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, moving right along. Hey. Okay, we're at number 4, proposal for consideration of action, which is, of course, the 2023 Cache County budget. Cameron, you have anything to address us right now? We did receive, Janine put that on our media so that we could look at that. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, I wanted to just do a quick show of how how you can navigate through that file.
Okay.
And then also there were 2 amendments that came up on Tuesday in the budget committee meeting, so I wanted to be able to address those.
Okay.
Cameron, while you're setting up, I just want to say thank you for getting that transaction detail in there. I know you were worried about getting that done in time, and I really appreciate you doing that. It makes a big difference to have that level of detail in the budget. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I had staff members as well. We worked on it quite a bit yesterday, most of the day, and we're able to finish up this morning to send that out. So I'm glad it's helpful.
Thank you.
Please spread the gratitude.
Yeah.
Okay, so depending on what PDF software you have, it may look a little bit different, but it should work pretty much the same. I just wanted to show what we were just speaking of there on the detail levels here and how this document is organized. So the very first page is the resolution page. That should be pretty straightforward. and that page is not numbered, so then after that, they're numbered, starting on page 1 with the first report. And of course, the first report is fund by fund, the balance of expenditures and revenues. That's pretty straightforward, I think, and you can see, you can click those open on the side, and there's tabs. So if you want to jump right to Visitors Bureau Fund, then there's a link, and you can jump right to Visitors Bureau Fund. That report is at the fund level, so you'll notice revenues, and then there's just the Cache Valley Visitors Bureau total expenditures. But if you wondered, well, what does entail in the Cache Valley Visitors Bureau, you can look at account detail for the Visitors Bureau, and then you can see all the accounts. And again, there's those links that can help you jump around in the PDF document. And then even if you want to jump a little further, that's what we spent the day yesterday preparing, was to see that account detail level or transaction detail level. And so you would be able to hit transaction detail and jump down to Visitors Bureau, and then you can see multiple, or the account number multiple times in the case of like 210, and you can see in the column here what each one of those are for. So that's about as granular as we can get, and that was the information that we were putting together yesterday for your consideration.
That's awesome, Cameron. I like those, being able to just go to the area. Thank you.
Yeah. And as you review that, if you have any concern or question about navigating through or trying to find something that you aren't able to find, please let me know.
Okay.
We'll be glad to help you out with that. So the second document then that I sent out earlier today is the amendment one, and most of these you've seen before. We reviewed them once in the council meeting. We reviewed them in the budget committee meeting. Items number 8 and 9 are new, and so I wanted to address those with you at this time. Item number 8 was discussed in the budget committee meeting regarding contribution for economic development for the Chamber of Commerce. And there was some confusion in discussions I had in the past, thinking that this was already in there, actually in the amount of $20,000. However, as we reviewed it in the committee meeting, we realized it's not. And so we discussed it further, and 10 was the amount that was requested to be put in. So there is, at this point, $10,000 included in the budget document that I sent out for the Chamber of Commerce. Another question that got brought up in the budget committee meeting was regarding a $5,000 amount for NACO travel. It had been zeroed out, and when I was asked about it, my response was that we had intentionally zeroed it in that account and had moved it to other departments. Afterwards, kind of got thinking about that a little bit more and looked for it, wasn't there, and so this is just putting it back into that original account for $5,000.
What accounts did you move that all to previously?
So the discussion had been travel for, and I think this is maybe why it didn't get moved, but discussion had been to move it for use. So it could be to the executive, it could have gone to any elected official that would go to NACO, but it didn't have a landing spot, and so but it also didn't get put back where it was originally. So this is just asking to put that in.
So, and which bucket did that go into?
So this is in the non-department department. It's account 14150. That'll be grouped up with miscellaneous and general. But if we jump over, and we can look at the budget document here, the account detail in the general fund. Well, let's see, is that the right one? I can, yeah, in the general fund. That'll take me a second to jump down. It might be faster, actually, if I show you the transaction detail. Under general fund, it's organized the same way we'd see it. So this one's going to be under general government. Under miscellaneous and general, you'll see this non-departmental, and that's that account 4150-230 has that 5,000 for NACO travel. So that's the same account here, 14150-230 NACO travel. Now this indicates here that part of that is allocated over to tax administration, and so that's what the rest of this is going on is 10%. So 500 will be tax administration. It's appropriating $4,500 then in the general fund and $500 in tax administration.
And that's where it's historically been?
Yeah.
So it was taken out by accident originally, or I'm
Well, not necessarily accidentally. I think it just was in a process of, we're going to take it out because we're going to put it in other places. And then as we discussed where to put it, we didn't put it anywhere else, and then, but also didn't come back and put it in the original place. So it was kind of an oversight in that regard.
If I had,
By memory, I was thinking we had allocated it, and we went and looked, yeah, and we went and looked for it, and it was not in the budget anywhere.
It seems to me like each department, if they want to go to NACO, they should have that in their own travel budget, and there shouldn't be this, just this budget that everybody could just take out of, or that one department ends up using more than anybody else, and I would prefer that it be removed. That would be my preference. I don't know how the rest of the council
I
feels
guess that's
about
my
it.
question is, who's requesting the the $5,000?
That actually hasn't been used every year. It was used in this year by the executive with some travel for NACO. But it's just historically, it's been 5,000 every year for a number of years.
You know,
only for elected officials, or how does it go to, and?
No, I mean, think theoretically it could be for others, but typically, I think elected are the ones going to NACO.
where it is, provides flexibility, because then we're not always, if the recorder decides that nationally there's some changes taking place and that he needs to be to NACO to learn about them and to implement them here, then he can go to it. But today, he may not know that that's going to be an issue, or going to be something that he might need to be to. And I prefer just to leave it there, and as long as it's reported to the council as to who's using it and where it's going to go, then I don't see a problem with it.
Well, Carl, if we could get that done, I think my concern is historically, it's been used but hasn't been reported. It's just kind of been out there and people kind of go in, dip into it. And it's a way to, I don't want to say have an off-balance sheet liability, but it's an off of your department, right? You can make it look like you're being pretty good with your department, but yet you've buried a bunch of other expenditures in other areas that you're hoping don't come back to you. I think if a department wants to use it, if the council's gonna send somebody to NACO, it should be allocated to the council, and we should be on that. And like you say, we would have budget openings, so most people are building the travel amount into their department budgets, and that travel amount isn't necessarily, sometimes, in fact, I've seen some travel where it says, you know, UAC travel, and it's a line item, and then just general travel as another line item. I think if a department decided they needed to go, they could increase their department travel budget in a budget opening and then travel.
That's what I was thinking as well, Paul. That makes sense to me.
Is this the only thing that's in the non-department
That's what I was, yeah.
cloud, whatever it is there?
There were a couple of other items that I think were left there. Let me, mostly it was reallocated out.
Well, I'm gonna move that we take that item and move it in the council budget, then the council can be the ones that allocate where it goes.
I would second that, and that gives the, Carl the oversight he'd want, and then have it as the flexibility, but we would then have the oversight.
Yeah.
And
Is-
that would work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, is $5,000 the total amount that's been allocated for that, or is there additional?
No, for NACO travel, that was all
That's
the
it.
amount,
Okay.
yeah. Here we are.
To amend.
So the UAC memberships is at 51,000. Boy, that doesn't show up very big, does it? Is at 51,600. Maybe if I close that up, it can be a little bigger. and then the NACO membership, $2,100. We left those there because that's a membership for the county in total. We don't, we could allocate that out to all the departments, but then again, some, like, you know, maybe aren't using that, so it becomes a county membership, so.
So do you want?
That's why those were left there, and then, like I said, we had contemplated travel, but it got moved.
Okay.
So,
All right, so we do have a motion. It's been moved and seconded that we take that 5,000 budget item and put it in the county council budget. And then we can watch how that's allocated out and what use it goes for. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
you want it specifically labeled as NACO travel in the council budget?
Yeah.
So those are the only things that I wanted to refresh and mention that had changed since we had last met with the full council. Everything else then would, I can answer questions from the council or review any other issues brought up by council.
Cameron, yesterday, or Tuesday, we talked in Budget Committee about an $8,000 donation to Sunshine Terrace that we were
Oh, yeah.
gonna remove from the budget. Does that
80,000,
happen?
yeah.
80,000, thank
Yeah.
you, not 8,000.
It was already not in the
It
budget.
was already not in the budget, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying that.
But then Dean did send us something that we need to
Right.
take action on, right?
Yes, so there's a contract between Cache County and Sunshine Terrace the commission entered into in 1975 that has been in effect. At that time, there was a statutory duty the county had to provide for the indigent, poor, and aged. There's no longer a statutory duty. In the intervening time, there's Medicaid and other local organizations that have filled that role. At the time that was entered into, the county delegated its duty to Sunshine Terrace the same way we do our mental health authority to Bear River Mental Health. At that time, there was a revenue stream for a tax. The county has the option to enact a tax for that purpose. We currently don't have one enacted in our county ordinances. So the contract can be terminated with 30 days notice. The date of payment in that contract is April 1st of each year. So we have until 30 days before April 1st to terminate that contract. My recommendation would be to notify Sunshine Terrace as soon as possible, just out of goodwill towards them, that they can plan for having an $80,000 decrease in their budget.
Is it, what, on that April 1st, is it for the year coming up, or?
Yeah, so it would be for that calendar year.
So are we obligated to pay the 80,000 for 2023?
No.
Okay.
It just requires a 30-day notice before payment. That
I see what you're saying.
So
Okay.
we have time, but I'd recommend that be done sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Has anybody talked to the people at Sunshine Terrace
I haven't,
about this?
no.
We need to.
Yeah,
We need to, but I can see. I know with the Medicare stuff, that's always kind of short. I think maybe they've got that in their budget that keeps them solid. I don't know. They need to be approached. We used to have the annual meetings with them.
Yeah, we don't
Haven't seen them for a while.
had those.
And if I may speak up, that actual contracted amount in the initial contract, I believe was $15,000 with the authority for the county commission to increase that based on the service. I don't know at what point this became $80,000. I don't know if Cameron can answer that. There's historical
sometime
knowledge there.
between now and 18 years ago. When I started, I think it was 60,000, and then it's graduated from there.
Okay, so contractually right now, it's $15,000. We had that 80 in the budget, but that's what our contractual obligation is $15,000.
okay.
I wonder if we ought to leave it in the budget
At 15,000?
Whatever's in there now,
Well,
80,000?
well, right now, there's not anything in the budget.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, I guess we should talk to them, and then, and if we need to have a budget opening and
That's,
adjust it, then we can do that.
I
Well,
think
there
that's
was-
wise.
There was heavy discussion in the budget meeting as to why to pull this out. And Dane can enlighten us there because there's some issues there.
Yeah, so my concern is, we haven't done any type of RFP for this service that we actually don't have a requirement to provide anymore. There are other nonprofits in the community that provide similar service, so I think any type of, we should have that conversation, but I don't think we should provide funding. I think there's an issue there when there are other organizations that are gonna come to us and say, why weren't we considered for this money?
That's a good point.
We need to be fair.
When and how do you want to discuss this with Sunshine Terrace?
Say after the first of the year.
'Kay.
We'll arrange something
Yeah.
that, have them come and talk to us,
Then
or,
come to us if they,
Okay, for what, a special workshop after the first of the year?
yeah,
That's a good idea.
just want to get out of it.
Well, but wait a minute, if we're sending that contract as Dane is saying, they'll probably want to talk before the beginning of the year. I mean, how do those two coincide?
When we're talking about the first of the year, I think if we wanted to make the decision to wait to provide our notice of termination, that still leaves us plenty of time before
April 1st?
April 1st. So I think we can.
Time those together?
Time that together.
Okay.
You could even meet with them and let them know that you're sending that notice before you actually send it. Just so they have a chance to be heard before you actually terminate the contract, and it's not reactionary to us terminating them, they're meeting with us.
Janine, do you know what the date of our first meeting is in January?
There will be a swearing-in ceremony on the first
On the,
Tuesday, but I think the next one, our first meeting will be,
Is that a ninth or something?
The 9th, I think.
9th?
Because the first is a Monday.
uh, 10th,
The
I'd say
10th?
first is Sunday, right? So it'd be the 10th.
so it's
Yeah,
the
the
10th.
first is
The 10th? So we'll have them at a special workshop then on the 10th? Is that
Oh,
okay?
we don't need to jump on it that fast.
Okay,
Yeah,
I think it'd be good to, even if we make an assignment made for a couple of us to go to one of their
okay,
monthly department meetings, board meetings, whatever they may have, and, let's talk to them about it, see what their need is.
we don't need to make any change on the budget then, as
okay.
send it to us.
I think
All right, then we'll hold off till after the first of the year. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it isn't bad that we don't have quite as many workshops, is it?
No,
You won't hurt my feelings.
mine either, Carl.
I have a couple questions. Do you mind if I go ahead?
Go for it.
Okay, so I was looking on the building and grounds, and on the transaction detail on page, I think it's 117. Get to it. It's 118.
Yeah, I think it's 180.
Yeah, 118, 121. Anyway,
Yeah.
what it is, I noticed, on the improvements, it says improve hazardous pavers out there between the buildings for $50,000. I thought we already took care of that. So I was wondering why that would be in the budget for next year. Is that project not complete?
It's grass in there now, isn't there?
There is. Walked over it on my way in.
What page you on? 18, 118?
118, correct. It's down at the bottom.
I think it's one.
It's printed at 117, but it
Yeah.
shows
Yeah,
118 on that.
correct.
Do you know anything on that, Cameron?
I don't actually have more. That would have been a request to load up.
I just noticed that today, or I would have brought it up earlier. Does the executive know anything on that?
That project's
your
done,
project?
I'm not sure why it's still in there.
Do you know?
So it is.
Need to
done.
take it out?
In looking at our various options to take care of that, between cement being so much, and we just looked and we had money in our budget because sod was closer to $13,000 or $14,000 instead of 50. So that's just an oversight that it's still in there.
Okay.
Other than needing, I think what may be in his budget would be an annual amount to do cutting, jutting corners and things like that off of sidewalks. But this specifically could, I think that's an oversight, could be taken out.
Good catch, Dana.
We should probably check maybe if you'll reach out to him and just see if he just didn't change the name for what project he was gonna do next year.
Well, since we're on page 117 and 118, there is space needs analysis is back again, Night of the Living Dead.
We killed that, didn't we?
$60,000 on page 117. And then also on page, the 118, there's the revenue, sorry. So, yeah, we did kill it, still back. It just doesn't, it just,
How does that keep jumping it back in there?
What page is it?
117,
It's up at the top.
right
Or
up
the
up there.
top
I mean,
right.
I don't know how many times you have to kill it before it dies.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Oh, yeah, okay.
That's curious. I mean, I thought the council had been quite clear on our feelings on that.
I mean, I thought third time was the charm. We're gonna have to do it 4 times now. So I make a motion that we strike 60,000 for the space needs analysis.
I would happily second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we strike the $60,000 for a space needs analysis. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Cameron, if you'll make note of that, please.
Maybe 4th time's the charm.
Another question I had, I believe it's on page 97 for council. It had the amount for the lobbyist contract for $10,000, and I thought that was not the right amount.
What's the page you on?
I
Yeah,
think it's on page 97.
97,
$4,500 a month.
correct.
That's per month.
It's per month.
I'm
Yeah, so
tired of
it's-
arguing the budget, but next year I'm going to argue that why in the world do we even need a lobbyist for the county period? And, but we'll save that discussion till next year.
Did you hear Carl when we had that discussion with Carrie Gibson?
No.
Oh, that would have, go back and watch it. I think he made a really great explanation of why we.
For the space
why we need
needs,
him.
it's 118, isn't it?
For the lobbyist.
Oh, I don't, 97 lobbyists?
Yeah, page
All right.
96.
96.
Okay.
96/97, depending on, the printed is 96, but, yeah, professional and technical lobbyist contracts, 10,000.
Yours all wacky.
Should that not be higher than that?
Yeah, it should be higher than that, because like Dave says, it's $4,500 a month.
On this one here, it doesn't even show it. This one on here, on today's budget. Is different than the 90.
And the contract goes, I'm trying to remember how long that contract goes. But I think it's right after the legislative session, isn't it?
Is it a one-year contract, or doesn't it just renew unless both parties, or one of the parties says we don't want to renew it?
I'll have to double check that again and see.
I would think we would just have gotten started on having him
Yeah.
work for us.
Document is a page
One
ahead.
page,
Yeah, it should be.
because it was showing
So we
it
need
on
to
there.
change that to what, 48,000?
It's way in the wrong.
See,
Yeah,
That's here in the airport funds. That's
yeah,
not there,
that's
right?
not even there. The wrong one there too.
Is the number there, the 10,000, and that's where we're at?
So we're back.
It's on the printed page, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's showing on the printed page.
197?
But,
Go to our council, then go into that one.
Yeah, we're gonna be at the
Homepage.
Well, I would like to get that, Jason.
The little 3 lines next to the
Yeah.
down arrow. There's your menu.
Yeah, I don't have it.
Okay.
Did everyone hear that?
what's
The
that?
little down arrow up in your upper left, right next to it's the menu piece.
Right.
It's different on your iPads.
Yeah.
You also have a search function upper right, the little
What's that?
magnifying
Going
glass.
backwards.
You can
You're
click
right.
that and type lobby.
That's
Mm.
very
And
different.
it'll show you the occurrence of lobby in that whole document, and then you click and it zooms.
Doesn't tell me.
Awesome.
Search is very powerful in this.
Okay, thanks, Bart.
Thanks, Bart.
Because here,
Learn something every day.
I know, and then you go back and it jumps around.
this is the carrot
Takes you back.
one.
Right there, 10,000.
So, sorry, we were technically working through stuff. There was the amount then for the lobbyist contracts?
Well, it's 4,500 a month, but I'm trying to remember when, if there was an end date on it, and if this is just for those first couple months of the year. I'm not quite clear on that.
My understanding is that it's a monthly amount based on a full year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might have happened when Barbara used and Paul had come into my office to work on it.
Correct.
Say that again?
Oh,
After this was already,
Here's what it should be.
so,
Okay.
and this didn't update. so.
okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because it seems like we did.
4,500.
So if we did a full year, you'd have to add 44,000,
We went on for
but I don't know about an end date.
No, so we start buying.
All right, Paul.
I think it
Yep.
just auto renews unless somebody, that's what I remember reading.
It just
in the
auto
book.
renews, okay.
It's been a long time since I read it, but
I
that's
know.
what I remember.
Yeah.
Go to example.
Cameron, where do our fleet vehicles show up? I know we have some things that are assigned to departments, you know, like fire would have certain trucks assigned to them and all, but we got those fleet vehicles out there. What,
So it depends on when they purchase. Usually they end up in the fleet after,
but where, I mean, where in the budget?
they'll only be here when they're first purchased. So if we purchase one in 2023, then we'll see that. It'd be in a 740 line. If we bought it last year, you won't see it in here.
As I remember,
a balance sheet
I
item
can
at
only
that
see,
point.
remember 2 entries on that. It seemed like it was under the sheriff's when we reviewed it Tuesday.
Yeah, so the sheriff has their annual program, so you'll see there's a lease revenue for the same amount as the vehicles that they purchase. So you see those purchases in each year, but they're on an annual cycle, so they'll have anywhere from, I don't remember if it's 10 vehicles, 5 to 10, maybe as much as 15 in 1 year, where they'll cycle those vehicles through, and then they'll get on a repayment program that goes through the debt service fund. But then in the next year, they buy their next 10 or 12 vehicles, and they have an annual rotation every year. Whereas some of these that are out here would only be every so often.
Is the assessors group the same way?
Yes, the assessor usually well, I didn't double check this year, but they've done usually about 2 every year.
Every year?
Yeah.
They had 2 in their budget for this year.
Right, okay, and then what have they been trading those others in? Because it used to be, that as the assessor would purchase those, then when they were done with them, a lot of those would end up being able to be shared or be sent to other departments for their needs.
Yeah,
Have we
that's
quit
right.
that?
It's been case by case, so like the sheriff's office is a lease program, and in the assessor's office, it's been a purchase. So
Right.
they've been outright purchased every, like 2 vehicles each year, and so they would keep them for probably 5 to 7 years, and then sometimes one would be traded in, but sometimes one would be given to the senior center, or maybe one
Right.
came over here for the vehicle.
Is that still
full year.
occurring?
It does case by case, yeah.
Okay, because they were often buying the Jeeps. They were working with Jeep.
Yeah, they did, the Jeep Liberty for a long time.
So how many vehicles, other than what the assessor purchases, what the sheriff's office purchases, we have some grounds vehicles?
Yeah, and
And a lot of the grounds
roads.
vehicles are actually ones that maybe came from
I think, yeah,
fire,
from
came from,
others.
other places themselves.
Yeah, I don't think Buildings and Grounds actually purchased a vehicle there. They kind of get passed around, and that's where they've got theirs. The road department will purchase them, of course, they specifically outfit them. Development Services had one or two, I don't know if they're still, if we still have them or not. When Josh was here, he had a vehicle. But I think Chris opted to pass it off. He used it for a while, and then I don't think he continued using it. Where they end up is kind of between department heads and the executive. That's not something that, I mean, we track them. Somebody will tell us, oh, we have a vehicle now, so when we do our capital asset list, and we do that for the audit, that we have the asset value, but it's not part of the annual budget. It would just be on our asset list.
So there are some vehicles that are not on our asset list, is that what you just said?
No, I'm saying they're not in our budget.
They're not in
The
our
vehicles we
budget.
own are on our asset list.
Okay. Let me make sure I understood.
Did the council want to correct the lobbyist amount?
Yeah, I was just gonna make a motion.
Yep.
So I move that we increase the lobbyist contract amount from $10,000 to $54,000.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded that we increase the lobbyist contract amount from 10,000 to 54,000. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And so I don't forget, Dirk, did you hear anything back about the paving project?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, simply put, it's fine that that was the money he was planning on needing to replace it, but with doing the sod, he should be fine. He mentioned if there are any cost overruns with like replacing those electrical receptacles or maybe doing anything to finish some sort of thing around the trees, he can always come back if he doesn't have the additional money. He usually can find year to year money within his budget, like if things aren't done in a certain area to take care of some of the smaller costs like that. So in other words, simply put, you could eliminate that 50 from next year's budget.
I will move that we.
Thanks, Dirk.
Yeah, thank you, Dirk. I will move that we remove the $50,000 in the building and grounds budget that was for the paver replacement.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded that we remove the $50,000 that was reserved for paver. What was the word?
Replacement.
Replacement. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Back to vehicles, I still have a question on truck replacement for on page 98, 72,000. Again, what is that for? Are we buying trading trucks in or something, or buying a new one?
That's what that is, yep.
A brand new one for $72,000.
It's probably two vehicles. It does say just one, but there was the executive, and then if you remember when Bryce was here, he had a truck also. I think that was for two.
I'm so confused by that because I think that truck's still out there. And looking back over when we had the lease going with the executive, he would trade it in, so it wasn't ending up costing that amount. He would trade them in,
Right,
right? So
right.
it's like a $3,000 difference each year.
Yeah, but what happens, this is an accounting thing, so I'll have to show a trade-in revenue, and I have to show the full expense of acquiring the vehicle. So you could look at it, if we had traded both of those vehicles in, and we got $69,000, then we spent $72 because we gave $69,000 of asset plus $3,000 more in cash, right?
So
But accounting-wise, I have to show the full amount for expenditures.
So we're trading them in.
That's what we've done in the past, yeah.
So there was a gray truck. We had the old gray truck that Craig had, and then there was the little Toyota.
A
That was for
2020
Bryce.
Toyota Tacoma.
And how about the white truck that I have seen lately? It has an EX plate on it, and And, Mr. Zook, I've seen you driving it around. Where'd that one come from?
That one that you saw me driving is a development services truck.
Well, if we're just gonna go to a pool, why don't we just have a pool of trucks that people could use during the workday? If we're gonna be dipping in and doing that. Is that a possibility?
So the reason I was driving that is because we are planning to trade in those two trucks, and the miles are getting high as we're waiting for new trucks to become available. So I was driving that one just to save mileage because I had lower mileage. But then I realized that that truck is paid for out of municipal services fund, and I thought that is probably more appropriate for that truck to only be used for municipal services costs.
Sense. So, the truck assigned to the executive is still the gray truck?
Yeah.
A 2020 Chevy Silverado.
I think it's a 2018, actually.
Well, it shows
I
that
think it's
in
a
there that there's a
2020.
2020 that was
2020.
traded in. You look in Casell.
There's one thing that we gotta remember, and that is we start trading trucks in that. I just got involved in one all one summer, and it took 8 months to get a truck. So as a result, you could be waiting for a long time to trade a county truck in or receive one. And I don't know if that's causing some challenges in this.
This specific, we did run into that with Meals on Wheels trucks, so that's been almost a year that we were dealing with that issue.
I don't think it's gotten any better in the last few months, so we might be continuing having trouble getting trucks. We can sell them, but it's hard to get one in to replace it.
I'll sell you mine for 72.
So I guess my question is, do we still have those 3 trucks?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, there are two that are assigned to the executive office. The black Tacoma and the gray Chevy.
Okay.
I guess I'm still a little
For
concerned.
county purposes only, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay.
Our fleet management probably should be tightened up a little bit if we've got folks driving vehicles assigned to other departments. When they have a vehicle assigned to them, we should probably look into better fleet management practices.
Yeah, we are looking at that. We've been having some discussions with Dirk and Amy about fleet management, a fleet manager position. I know Councilmember Erickson has talked about that a few times. And we're working on a plan to address that Amy will probably bring to the council in the next couple of months.
As part of that, can we also assign gas cards to vehicles? I know we have some internal control issues with gas cards too. So if you'd add that to the plan, I'd appreciate it.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Some departments are extremely good and I mean, there's not ever a single vehicle out of their department that ever goes home with them. When they go to do anything for department business, they pick up the vehicle here, they go to the department, they bring it back here. And according to policy, what I've been reading, it flat out says that no one is supposed to use any county property and equipment for personal business whatsoever, whether you be a elected official or not. So I think we need to tighten some things up, and that 72,000 that you say it's a.
That was for 2 vehicles.
2 vehicles,
Yeah.
trade.
Yeah, it was with a trade-in, yeah. It was in, I think we ran into truck issues this year. It was actually in a budget this year that we couldn't do, so it was requested to put it in for next year.
I don't know, these tough times, I'm starting to say, hey, do with what we got, and put a few more miles on it, and
Remember, if you
maybe
don't-
get a couple from the assessor's office next year, and have them, they're gonna purchase a couple, have them roll a couple over.
Well, I think Josh one time here a few years ago told us that with the lease and the trade back in, that it was far more economical to the county to run them about a year and then trade them back in. So if we start saying, well, we're gonna keep them and run them, the older they get, the less value they are.
Those,
And pretty soon, all the advantages of the dealerships, or probably the company giving you that vehicle for a lease and then turning it right back and it not costing you hardly anything. You start running them for 5, 7, 8 years, it's all gone. In fact, I think it's gone the first year.
but I don't know whether, well, it was our policy to actually turn I know the gray one, that was our policy to be able to do that very thing, but we haven't done it because of
Yeah.
economic times has
we're-
told us you can't get a new one. You can't get another one to replace
The
it.
problem that you run
So-
into is, you know, a lot of this stuff is just simply back from the COVID thing. Nothing's right. You can't get a vehicle. They'll have it built and you'll be waiting on chips. And so if you think you can immediately do what you want to do, I don't think we're being realistic. It just, the way the program is now, it is impossible. And I think the big car dealerships are ripping everybody off. And I should say this with no knowledge, but it appeared to me when I was dealing on a truck and that, it became very apparent to me that there were some interesting things taking place. They would build a truck and it would sit somewhere waiting for a chip. And then after they got the chip, it would sit on another place for so many weeks because that company couldn't deliver it until they'd had it for X amount of days. And then when that X amount of days was up and they could make the money to haul it here, there's a lot of crazy things going on now. And I think you're seeing these equipment companies with everything that you order it, and then when they know they've got it sold, then they bring it in. You still wait some time, and then and then you go there with your check, and they don't have any inventory of any kind. And it's far more profitable to be able to build stuff when you know you got it sold. Snowmobile industry won't even build a snowmobile until they know that they've got it sold. And I think you're seeing the same thing with your automobile industry.
And as part of our fleet management too, right? We buy some of these vehicles using grant funding, correct?
We have some, yeah.
And those can't really trade in, I'm assuming. I don't know. I mean, we
No,
probably need to.
lots of times it will depend on the specific terms. The only one that comes to mind right offhand, we got one for elections that was with grant dollars that I think satisfies its use after a normal life of the vehicle, and then it could be used for any other reason.
You know, Dave, we sit on that fire board and we're almost a year and a half off from the time that we order an engine to the time that we actually get it delivered. It's crazy how long that takes, and talk about the cost of that piece of equipment going up. It's just, there's just hardly any way to even budget. But that's just the vehicle side of the county.
Is that the purchase of one, or is that the leasing of one? Does it matter? Like, is there a problem if you're leasing one and you go to trade it in, that you can't get another truck or another vehicle? Or is it just if you want to purchase one?
There just isn't
There just isn't anything?
There just isn't a vehicle out there that is built and can be delivered. And so you might go a year and a half before you actually get a vehicle or get the fire truck that you ordered, as much as a year and a half ago. You finally get it delivered. And you've had the money budgeted for a year. It just sits there. It's not spent, but I mean, things don't work very smoothly that way.
And I think that, I mean, the supply chain issue sounds like what you're asking, Gene, and kind of what you're saying, Gordon, too, is even if we lease vehicles and we go to trade them in and there's not a vehicle available, then we're gonna start getting hit with lease penalties because we're gonna be incurring a whole lot more miles, and which then would probably change that balance of it's better to lease than buy.
Yeah, the benefit of that.
But that has nothing to do with fire trucks.
On this,
Yeah.
because I'm right in the middle of all this.
Now we'll get the,
The scoop.
So our command vehicles, our pickups, we've gone to a lease program, and it's an annual lease. There's no mileage assigned to that. Essentially what we do is we order the vehicle. It's $3,500 a year. And when they deliver the vehicle, then they order the replacement, knowing that it's gonna be at least a year off. If it's longer than that, we continue to drive at the same rate. There's no mileage penalty incurred. So as soon as the next one arrives, it's delivered, we're still paying that continuous $3,500 a year. And when it's turned in, it goes in to trade in, they sell it at auction, and because of our government pricing, the amount that it's sold for more than the government price comes back to us. So based on what the lease companies said to us is it will be a net revenue generator for this lease and turnover program. Plus, we're not paying maintenance. I've got 2 vehicles right now that are 2017s that the timing chain went out. So there's $3,500. That's an annual payment just to repair each of those vehicles. Yes, they are difficult to get a hold of. The ones I ordered in March aren't going to be built because they're not building diesel GMCs. And so I talked to them yesterday and they said, I've got 4 gas motor engines. It's not exactly what we ordered, but it's what we got. And I said, that's fine, that'll work, we'll take them. So it's kind of we'll take what we can get, but from a cost standpoint to the county, it's more effective than buying. I've got one that I'm paying $12,000 a year for a 0 buyback instead of a $3,500 a year continual rollover, and the lease is a much more beneficial and cost-effective way to do it.
Thank you, Chief.
A lot cheaper than 72,000, we're gonna be dancing. I think we need to be in some sort of smart program that we can do things
And
like that.
I think that might be an accounting number, because he's got to show we've got to show the full purchase price, but on the backside is the revenue that comes in from turning it in. So it's not that we're paying, and you'll have to answer that. I don't think we're paying $7,200 for the trucks.
72,000.
72,000.
Thank you, Chief.
That clarifies it quite a bit, and it makes it creates an argument for doing this across the county.
A lease program?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if we could enter into some kind of a similar contract. 'Cause what Gordy said is correct. I mean, you can't find vehicles. You go out on these dealers' lots and.
But on that kind of a contract and program, we aren't hurt. Because
No.
they'll say, okay, hey, we'll get this one comes in, we trade it, and they'll just keep working with you until, it's basically on their backs to
Right.
fulfill their part of that kind of agreement.
Right.
So,
it's my opinion that those programs are out there. You just gotta go find them and do them.
well, I know the first truck that was purchased for the executive, that's what he traded it, the previous executive traded it one other time. Because they called him up, he went in, same thing, and his down, I think it was like $1,600 or $1,700 cost
Yeah.
total, what he had for
That's
about
exactly
a year
right.
and
Maybe just over.
it was a little over a year, like 15 months.
It was
What he had, that's what it cost.
It was unbelievable how
Yeah.
reasonable that was. But I'm concerned that those type of things have kind of gone away because of the lack of being able to do it as you'd like to, because of the lack of
Availability.
vehicles being available.
It's coming back though, but you're right.
It is, it'll come back, maybe. I'm afraid that it's not ever gonna come back the way it was. I think it's a lot more profitable for those companies to not build it until it's sold and then go to building it. That way you don't have a parking lot full of vehicles waiting for somebody
They
to
like
buy
to
it.
keep their factories busy though, otherwise you're laying off and rehiring and laying off and rehiring. So there's a certain amount where they'll try to right-size an inventory or right-size a production. Hopefully it comes back. That really was good.
All right, so are we okay with the 72,000 in there then, or do we want to make any type of an adjustment?
Well,
Oh, no.
given the explanation and the credit back that nets it out, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay.
And it's for 2 vehicles, right? Not one.
Well, those aren't leased vehicles, correct?
No.
Those are not.
Those are owned, not leased.
Yeah, but the same principle applies in this case.
Originally, they were set up that they would turn over after a year.
Yeah, I think they did, and I think there was, I want to say there was 2 of them that did work that way, but it was when the pandemic hit, it kind of slowed it down. Yeah.
Well, maybe we ought to go all green and just buy electric, and that way we can do away with these other ideas. Well, you know.
I didn't hear what he
I
said.
didn't hear either.
Did you hear what I said, everybody?
No, I didn't, Gordy.
The press is here, so say it good and loud.
Make sure they're not electric. Let's burn coal and rather than fossil fuels. You know? Coal is a fossil fuel, but that's, I'm being fictitious. So.
While we're on 98, I had some questions on, yes, that would be, you had travel, the UCMA and UAC, cost of official business travel, and then ICMA conference, and other training needs. Could I have an explanation on all those?
Yeah, I can explain that. UCMA is the Utah City and County Management Association, and that's an organization that Dirk
City and county?
City and County Management Association. It's an organization that Dirk participates in and is a member of. UAC, you're all familiar with what that is. ICMA is the international, it's basically the national version. It's mostly the United States, but it's the National City and County Management Association that Dirk, I believe, is also a member of. Official business travel and other training needs, those are just general training and travel.
It really costs $5,500 to go to UAC and UCMA. That seems a little high for one person, or is it more than one person?
That's more than one person. Like, so for UAC, that would be anyone in our department who went to the various UAC events throughout the year. These amounts have not been increased. These are the same amounts that were there before I started in this office.
We had any other official business travel line item too? Or is that a new one?
I haven't changed any of these numbers. Everything's exactly how it was. The only thing that changed in my budget is the insurance allocation that was allocated to all the departments. We eliminated some funds for an intern, and all of the other numbers stayed the same. I guess the only other thing that changed was the salaries and benefits went up based on the council-approved increases.
So they look the same as they have in years past to me.
Is that right, that we didn't ever, that we had a cost of other official business travel?
You know, on specific issues like that, I don't recall for sure, but the account balances, I think, is what he's getting to for sure. So if you look at this is the executive department budget for 2022 and 2023. And so this is what he's referencing there, is that the subscriptions didn't go up, travel didn't go up, office expense. He's brought those over really flat. The insurance, we haven't allocated that out before, and that's why that was going up. And then we had discussed the City Managers Association was moved to municipal services is where that's located. So it's not in this budget, but it's still part of the county budget. Up here is the wage increases that have been approved. So that those are the changes to the budget for the executive. Inside of an account, I would have to go back and look at old documents to see if they were all titled exactly those same things, but the total dollar amount is the same.
Okay, with what I'm looking there,
So I'm actually looking back, if you pull up our 2019 executive budget, travel was at $4,200.
total,
I just looked at that as well.
so they have changed.
Which
And it-
line?
They have changed.
Travel, and it wasn't broken out into official anything or this and that, it was just travel.
Are you talking about line 230?
Yeah, 14131
So
dash
you got
230.
230, and they break it out into a couple different things, and you're saying that it hasn't changed, but we're saying 2019, it was a total of 4,200.
Previously, there was only the executive and not the chief deputy executive, so once the chief deputy executive,
Should we look at 2020?
Let's
Would you
look-
like to look at that?
Yeah, let's double check on that.
Okay, I'll look that up real quick.
Can you find it on yours?
Yeah, I'm
2020 was also, I'm sorry, 2020 tentative was, 11,200 was the tentative, and it went down to, that's
Isn't
the
it
tentative budget.
3,000? That's what I saw when I looked at the 14, month 14.
There have been some definitely escalating costs in that area.
yeah, it was previously about half of this. Before I got here, that budget was half because it was only for one person, the executive. And then when the chief deputy county executive position was created.
Was
then-
that created on your watch?
No. The following budget year, the travel budget was essentially doubled, but I wasn't part of that budget, that was before my time.
I apologize, I didn't bring this, but I remember looking through the old budget when we just first got Bryce, his travel budget was zero. I saw my printed off copies, it was zero for him for travel.
Because as I recall, the discussion on Bryce's position is, we created the chief deputy position so that he could be here when the executive was gone and attend to the executive duties in the county, not to travel. So
Yep.
that would have been consistent with our discussions around what the chief deputy position was about. And it really, at least initially, wasn't going to be a chief deputy position.
Yeah, and Bryce, and that's why Bryce brought that request to the council to add those training funds a couple of years ago. And
When did he bring that to us?
I don't know, I think you're saying that's in the 2019 budget, and it was lower than that before that, so I'm guessing 2019, 2018.
Yeah, I don't have that. I didn't set myself up. I could go back for historical stuff if we want, but I'd take a few minutes to have to be set up for that. Right now, I have what you see in front of you.
So I'm confused then, because when I'm looking in Cassell on month 14 of 2020,
Educational technical,
and it shows that the actual travel was 3,451.
2,500.
The executive's office, what am I misunderstanding here?
I only have 21 and 22 and 23, so I'd have to open that up. I can do that.
We could get that pulled up and look at it if we'd like.
I'm in Cassell looking, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Trying to
that should be
understand.
the correct number if you're in.
Yes. Yeah, so for 2020, our travel was 3461.
With a budget of 11,200 and a variance of 7,000.
That's jumped to 9,000?
Yes,
That was when?
in 2020.
2020.
We'd always budgeted about 45, so I think the statement that it's exactly as it has been.
Well, let's decide what it is that is really needed.
That's the bottom line,
Yeah, that's
That
the
is a
bottom
good
line.
question.
you know.
Yeah.
We can
That's-
go,
and that's
we can
what
go
we
back and
decide.
see what was spent before, budgeted before, but that's water under the bridge. What's more critical is what's needed.
And as I look at it, right,
To
we,
appropriately manage the affairs of the county.
Yes. So I would say, you know, go into UAC would probably be appropriate.
I agree.
Outside of that, I'm trying to think, we do have the council has a budget for NACO if somebody wanted to go to NACO. Outside of that, I'm trying to, does anybody else have anything that we need to travel for?
I guess I'm a little bit confused too. What's the difference between the meetings and conferences and then that official business travel? What's official business travel really involve?
Because we have a car that we pay, or a truck that we pay for.
Yeah, I go to Salt Lake for meetings, probably on average, at least once a month. Meetings throughout the county, we have a large county.
So that would be paid for using the county truck, correct?
Yeah, and I believe that comes out of that official business travel account. Gas, insurance, maintenance, things like that.
Do we allocate insurance and maintenance and travel? Cameron, I'm trying to remember this.
So it works a little different, but a lot of departments that don't have a fuel line or whatever will put it in their travel line.
That's maintenance and insurance as well? I thought we paid insurance.
So the liability insurance is separate, yeah.
Now we pay insurance at a universal level, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
The budget, just to answer that question, in 2020, I'm gonna check my date over here. I believe it was all. So in 2019, when we were setting the 2020 budget, there were 3 items that made up that $11,200. $2,500 was for commuting. $4,500 was for meetings and conferences, including NACO and UAC. And then there's a budget transaction that says $4,200 was bringing that from a county administrator budget over into the executive budget. So we had at one point contemplated having an executive budget separate from a county administrator. When ultimately Bryce was hired, we said, well, let's have him be a deputy executive rather than a county administrator. And so then, because the budgets had already been developed separately, they were just kind of merged together. That's why you saw a jump in the budget in 2019. However, the actual amount used was the $3,400 is the correct amount.
So that money also included NACO.
It says meetings and conferences, NACO and UAC, $4,500.
So we've already got 5,000 for NACO somewhere else.
NACO used to be I remember several years ago that if you went to NACO, you were part of one of the committees. You're actually a member of one of the committees that you're approved on, and the frequency of going there was every few years. You know, you just didn't have to be there every year, nor several times during a year. I guess I'm just not seeing the whole lot of and then it was for elected officials only. That it was always just kind of given that it was for elected officials only. So I just kind of think that maybe some things have been moved around to where, you know, that I'm not quite understanding fully why we're needing so much money and why we need to travel and be gone from the county, and rather than just doing the county's business as much as.
Well, yeah, I don't know that. I just know that for a couple of years, I was invited. Craig asked me if I wanted to go to NACO, and I didn't see a reason for me to have to go, so I declined. And how those things were budgeted then, I don't know. And I don't know what was different then and what's different now.
I went 1 year. I paid my own airfare. And the stay and the NACO conference was paid for. The rental vehicle, I paid for it by myself to go back there because I was a committee member. But now I can actually listen to all those committees via Zoom. So.
I think that's one
I'm
thing.
still on that Agricultural Affairs Committee, I just do Zoom. So,
You know, if
free.
I fear that maybe we're straining on gnats right now. And I think maybe we ought to move ahead and approve this budget and take a step, because this has been an arduous, long budget process.
Yes, it has.
And we need to make some policy decisions. I mean, the council sets policy for the county. And the executive puts into place the policies that the council sets. And so if we determine, if we set up a policy as to what we want the chief deputy to do, what things we want the executive to go to, what things we need to go to ourselves, those are kind of policy decisions. And if we don't spend the money that's in the budget, that's great. But we spent an hour and 15 minutes going over what in my mind are becoming rather nitpicky items. And we ought to focus on just get the budget passed and then set some policy so that we can know how to spend those dollars in the right way. Just a thought.
I would say this budget is policy, and I think it's really good to have this level of detail because I feel like that's what we've been lacking. I think that the council is aware of certain things that going on that we need to be looking at this level of detail because nobody else really is.
I'm not.
Okay,
I'm
I
not
was like,
arguing
we
that.
really need to know what these details are, and travel has been one of the things that I've seen some huge increases as I've gone through everybody's budget and looked at. I mean, even the library now has a travel budget, and so I don't think looking at travel budget is a nitpicky thing. I think it's important because it's a place that things get really out of hand, and especially when you start looking in Casella at where travel things are being stowed away in different budgets. I think that's somewhere where we need to we need to cut it. We need to be really careful with travel because that expense can add up super fast. And I agree with whoever it was that said, our elected officials need to be here doing county business here, and there's a lot of ways that they can do that, and this is where they need to be. So I agree with that. And the level of travel in this budget does concern me. I think it's increased significantly.
One thing that I have been questioning in my mind, do we want to continue to do the special event of a suicide awareness for $55,000 a year? Is that something that you decide to lock the county into, to spend that kind of money every year? If it isn't needed or is it not needed, I'm not an expert on suicide prevention. Or awareness, I guess, is the thing. Does anyone else understand that more than I do? That's a lot of money.
I think that is a lot, and the initial thought was we were gonna raise private funds for that event, rather than have it be a line item on our budget. I know we kind of came in as a little bit of a stopgap if it was underfunded and we could use some, I would think something like that would probably be more appropriately funded through maybe a RAPS tax application or something as a special event rather than a ongoing line item at $50,000.
I agree.
Do too.
I feel that the concert and stuff that we've done have been effective. but do we want to spend $50,000 every year on that?
What page are you on, Gordon?
I'm on page 145. And we've also got the, that's the same place where you got your Cheese Festival and those type of things.
Yeah, both of those events receive a substantial amount of sponsorship revenue. However, if it is the council's suggestion that there be an application for RAPS funding, I think that's a great suggestion.
I think that would be the more appropriate place for that to be, because 50,000 is pretty significant for a one-time.
You seem like we have that one champion gal, she, can't remember her name, but she done a lot of work and she done a very good job, but we need to maybe coach her and help her to be ready for RAPS application for that.
That'd be
So,
good.
I'm not exactly sure if we want to nix it or if we want to figure out a better approach to it.
It would still need to show the expenditure there, but it would be with the understanding that where the revenue is coming from would be from RAPS and/or contributions.
I would feel better about that. I hate to get us locked into that every year we're going to do a $50,000 or $60,000 event, when there's maybe other options.
What if the RAPS application's not accepted?
That's true.
Then we have a $55,000 expenditure.
Right, does it even qualify for RAPS?
It'd actually be
part?
restaurant tax. So if we have,
Restaurant tax.
yeah, if you had the large, what's the word I'm looking for? Tourism draw, because you're having a large concert for the event, then that does qualify for a restaurant tax.
For restaurant.
Now, those two are done at the same time and awarded together, and I think that's why we keep saying RAPS tax, but it would actually be restaurant tax.
So we should then just take that out of this budget and leave it off on its own as a,
Even if it's funded by restaurant tax or donations, it still needs to be in the budget as an expenditure.
Yeah, I agree. I just wonder how to
Yeah,
do it.
it would have to be.
Because if it's, the way it sits in there now, it's in the budget, we'll spend it. And if there's other
Exactly.
sources of revenue, then that's maybe what we should be looking for, and
That's a concern I have with leaving it in. If we just leave it in there, then it's like it's budgeted and nobody's gonna go out and look for other money for it because the money's in there. So I don't understand why we would leave it in there. That doesn't make any sense to me.
That's how it's been the last 2 years, and there were significant fundraising activities, and so if you want to take it out and have the fairgrounds come and ask for whatever they can't raise or whatever they don't get, but the restaurant funding decision, that's the council's decision. You get to decide that. So if you're deciding now that you think that's an appropriate place, then you can decide next year to fund it through restaurant tax.
well, I'd make a motion that we strike the $50,000 from this year's budget.
I
For
will
that.
second your motion.
50 or 55?
It's 50.
50?
I, 55, are you, 145, 482, suicide awareness, 55,000.
Is it 55?
Yeah, that's what I'm showing is 55.
Mine's 150, or mine's 50.
Yeah,
Are
mine's
we on the
showing
same thing?
52.
mine's 55.
Mine's 55.
What are you showing, Cameron? What's an official show?
55,000.
I make the motion will be for 55,000. Struck.
And I'll
The
still
other thing,
second.
Paul, that I'm worried about is I think it's a good event, but I'd like to set it up so that we have to, as a community, to go out and raise money, not just the county fund it. This is the taxpayers that's funding it, and if we go out and get private concerns and all that, that would be helpful.
And I agree with you, Gordon. That's how it was done the first year.
Yeah.
When it was created, it wasn't in our budget, and that's how it went off. So I think,
David,
it has to-
David, do you remember what the first year they came, they wanted to do it? We thought it was a good idea and that, and they went out and raised private funds, and then we were the stopgap for it. How much did we actually spend that year for it? Do you remember?
So it was about 50,000 in the first year, and the council committed up to 25,000 if need be. The first year they were able to raise the full amount and a little more. So there was no dollars out of the county tax, from property tax, from restaurant tax, or from anywhere. It was all fundraised. This year they did about I have to look to be 100% sure, but it seemed like it was around 15 to 20,000 that the restaurant tax had to backfill, because they had fundraising of over 35,000 by memory.
So we were
Again,
short this
but we
year.
were short this year.
We
Yeah.
were short this year, so.
Does that mean we didn't raise as much money this year as the first year?
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah,
Is we leave it there and we
Is it-
won't, we'll just fund it. That's about the way I look at it.
And I don't think that was the purpose, that it was supposed to be something that could stand alone.
Yeah.
And just start, whatever organization it is that we were helping with, they're the ones that need to basically, put the RAPS tax, or put the, restaurant tax application together and
It was
send it
county
into
sponsored,
us.
so it was the county fairgrounds staff that really did all the work on that and put that together. So it was a county sponsored program, but county's fairgrounds staff put it out there about raising funds and getting donations, and were able to successfully receive donations to cover the whole thing. Now, they did express concern right up front, and that's why the council had committed up to 25,000 in the restaurant tax if it were needed, but in the first year it was never needed.
But why would we, I still don't quite understand why we would even have to have this in here if they could do the very same thing in an application to the restaurant.
Well, so because it's the county entity that's doing it, so if it was Logan City doing it, then it wouldn't be in our budget, but because it's the county doing it, then it's our expenses, but we would show restaurant tax if it was awarded.
There isn't another private entity, or not private, but nonprofit entity or anything like that?
Could River Health be on this?
Yeah, or want something that we can
Yeah, I mean,
have
yeah,
in the
that's-
application, them.
That's, yeah, if they were interested in doing that,
Or is there grants through that side too?
It's a great
There
thing,
could
but
be, I don't know.
I think that a lot of these things need to be kind of standalone and then go through the proper channels for funding.
It's my concern, it's my concern that if we've got it in the budget for 55, who's ever gonna do that program, we say, okay, you got a $55,000 fund. Put together a program.
Money, fine, if we don't.
Anyway, that's my thing. Do we wanna
Let
keep
me
it?
just ask, because why are we talking 55 all the time, and that's all I see on here is 28?
Whoa.
Well,
28's the line above, that's
the
the Cheese Festival.
The Cheese Festival, yeah.
Yeah, and then suicide awareness, it's on 145.
Yeah,
145.
what's suicide awareness got to do with Cheese Festival?
Well,
They're two different events.
They're two
just in the
different
same
things.
account line, special events.
So where do we get 55 from then?
from the
That is-
suicide
Ours, is yours
awareness
not there,
line.
Carl?
What?
Right underneath Cheese
Mine says
Festival, there's,
50.
well, go page before that, Gina.
Okay.
Where are we getting 50 from?
Right here,
Yeah, because-
suicide awareness.
Yeah, but that's not Cheese Festival.
No. they're
50
talking-
on page 146, if you go to 145,
If you're, I'm looking at 145, and if it's wrong, but that's what I'm looking at. Page
you see
145.
28,000 for cheese.
Right in the
and-
middle of-
And 55 for the awareness.
Yes.
28 for cheese.
Cheese Festival, so
No.
that's
28 for the cheese,
I'm
yes.
confused.
Oh, I see. So what's in the budget on page 146 on your tablets is the revenue coming in. So it says that there's a $50,000 contribution is what's anticipated for the suicide awareness concert. And that's saying it's coming in as a transfer from the Cache County Community Foundation Fund. So people give to that fund because it is a nonprofit. They can do a tax write-off for those donations. If you donate directly to the county, you can't write that off on your taxes. So that 50,000 is actually what was in the budget for the revenue. And then 55,000, you're seeing that as the expense on the prior page.
It's on the revenue side.
Twice. Isn't it the same thing?
Yeah. The one I'm looking at, isn't it on the?
Oh, I see it.
And then that's where the 55 is.
So if you cut
So basically,
the
we're- it's-
55s, you would want to cut that 50 out.
Yeah, it's a net, basically,
5,000.
we're looking at a net loss of 5,000 taxpayers
Right.
fund for a good cause.
Yeah,
Okay. That's how you got it set up.
that's how this
As
is set up, yes.
Did you understand that, Carl, where they're talking
On
about?
that same page, can you explain why Chiefs
No,
Festival?
I'll just have to take your word for it.
Why it shows 28 and then two below it, it's another 8,500 updated expense?
That's, that, I was gonna
Cheese and
ask
Dairy
about
Festival?
that also.
I think they came back and asked for an additional amount, and rather than just change the original, it was added as a separate line.
I mean, I see transfer in for Cheese and Dairy Festival 23.
That's a good event, but even that one needs to be privatized or also, I think.
Or if there, maybe there needs to be a standard of saying if we're
So then
sponsoring
it's
something, this is the
23,000
limit.
under revenue.
Policy.
idea.
Yeah.
Then we're equitable, not equitable, equitable to all. Here, county will go this far and nothing more.
And I think that's the way we set up this, the suicide the first year, is we would go up to 25,000, as I recall.
Yeah.
You know, as a safety net. You know, we would go out, I don't know what this we's all about, I shouldn't speak of myself as a we, I'm saying that the people that wanted to do the suicide awareness concert and that kind of stuff, they really felt well that they could get private sponsors, that they were scared that they maybe couldn't get enough, and they asked us to be as a safety net for them, and we said, we'll go to 25,000, and I don't think they used it, or not that much of it.
I mean, I would agree with that. It's just like the year that Utah Festival of Opera came to us, and they were in dire straits. And we, because they couldn't get the money they needed, and we agreed, us tandemly with Logan City, to provide additional funding. And so that kind of thing could happen with any of this suicide awareness or Cheese Festival or anything.
Right.
If they are short, then they can come to us.
The important difference there, though, is that both the suicide awareness concert event and the Cheese and Dairy Festival event are county events. They're not a different entity. The county started both of those events.
The county did?
Yes.
So they're not run by separate?
They're not run separately. Those are county events.
Not a separate
Like the fair.
501c3 or nonprofit
Right.
group or anything like
Right.
that?
But let's go down just a little bit further. Now, all of a sudden, we have some cruise-in costs that we are incurring, right? Cleaning, it says right there, we got some cleaning, fair cleaning,
Oh,
3,
yeah.
5, 6,200, window cleaning. All of a sudden now which I know RAPS tax, we give them a big chunk.
Yeah, we did.
There's that celebrate, which is again, it's a great thing, but that ought to be part, all those
Charge them
costs,
fees, though, too.
all those costs ought to be part of that event, right?
Yeah, so if you wanted to just call it one cruise-in event, this is the way Bart Esplin would have detailed it out, so that when he wants to go back and look, why did he budget what he budgeted, he could see more detail. But we do charge fees for the cruising, so again, we'll show a revenue, and then we have the expense.
But I didn't see it on the revenue. Where is it on the revenue?
So revenue, it won't, see, they probably just have a lump sum estimate, but it should be, it's event center revenue, $100,000. It's most likely part of that.
Now we have a motion on the floor.
We have contracts with them each year.
Thank you for remembering.
But I can't remember what the motion is.
It was just to take that out of the budget.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
I'm not gonna be on the council next year, but I really like to see this suicide prevention, and I would like to run it like we did the first year, and that is that we encourage it as a county, we sponsor it as a county, and we become the safety net as if we can't raise the money to put it on, and then after that, we can see if it's just too expensive and we don't have the community support to sponsor it and encourage it, then we can start backing off of it. But
I definitely agree with that.
I think we should support it, I think we should encourage it, and I think we should be a safety net. But I don't feel that we should just budget a 50,000 and say, go spend it.
How about the Cheese and Dairy Festival? Do you feel the same way with that?
It's the same.
Okay.
I think both of them the look at that as the same thing. We don't just budget it, but we encourage it. We get sponsors from the cheese companies, we get the sponsors from the milk companies, and we get all of that. And then if we need to put money into, you know, finish up the expense side of it, then we do it. But we don't just say, no, we're not gonna do it anymore, we're not gonna fund you. But we ought to have a safety net there where we encourage it, and then we help if we need to.
Okay,
And maybe it needs to come out of a different budget. Maybe it needs to come out of the tourism budget rather
And
than the
I-
general fund.
Bottom line.
I really think that we should see if we can't get wraps on that.
So,
okay, so do we need to amend the motion
so
then?
if I would amend my motion to take both of those events out of the general budget this year. And
Two
then
line items or three?
The three line items.
Okay.
The two for the cheese and dairy, the updated cheese and dairy.
Okay.
And then the suicide awareness and the corresponding revenues for that. Just pull all of that out of the budget. And we're gonna handle it kind of like Gordon said, that we're gonna try to have those stand on their own, move them into tourism. And then if they do fall short, the next year's council can maybe be a stopgap as we were the first year.
Okay, so I gotta make a clarification. So for them to spend anything, they have to have a budget to do that. So
Who to spend
for the
anything?
county to spend dollars, we have to have it in the budget. So if we said we want them to start and see if they had enough, they've got to have a budget of some type that says this is the amount we're working with. We're trying to target amount. So if we took everything out of the budget and it's just not there, then they aren't authorized to contract with a performing artist. They're not authorized to buy cheese or whatever else they have to do for these festivals. They've got to have something in the budget that works with that. Is that what you're wanting to be in the?
How did they do it the first year? Because it wasn't in the budget.
It was amended into the budget before.
But they had started it before it was, we didn't amend it into the budget and then it got started. It had already.
If, it should have been in there. If they started spending, they were spending from other account lines, saying we've got money, we'll take it out of this line. But straightforward, the way government should always work is you can't spend anything unless it's in your budget.
Move the Cheese and Dairy Festival to the tourists.
Tourism.
To the visitor bureau, is that?
Yes.
That's what you mean by tourist.
Same way with the suicide awareness, or no?
That one I don't think fits,
Okay, that doesn't fit.
but,
But neither of them
But you
fit in
could-
the fairgrounds.
Well, I think maybe the way we could do that is let's budget for the cheese and, the cheese festival, let's budget $10,000, and then if we need to have a budget opening, then we can. I think that's how we did it before. 'Cause I don't think that, it was a good event, it needed to be budgeted, we talked about it, then we turned around and we opened it for a budget opening, and then we funded it. And I think that's the way to do it, rather than just say, okay, here you got $50,000 to go put on an event, and there you go.
Well, that would be where we set a limit, saying, okay, here's, if you're gonna go this way, I mean.
You want them to raise the money first, so for example, in the suicide awareness case, they want to contract, they've done that for these last 2 years with Alex Boyer. That contract, if I recall, has been over $40,000 by itself. So that's not, if you don't have $40,000 in the budget, they legally aren't really supposed to make that contract,
so he
right?
didn't donate his time,
No.
but that's what the paper said.
So donations were received to pay for that, but he didn't. Unless his normal rate is 80,000 or something like that, I don't know, but we did pay for that.
It seems to me that if we put some money in the budget, that's like our limit, like you said, Nolan, then they could go out and raise the rest,
And then once they raise it, they can contract.
then they can contract after that.
That would work.
So are we going to change the amount that's there? Are we going to transfer the Cheese and Dairy Festival to tourism?
I think we can change that one. I think we're gonna have to fund it to some level.
Okay,
And then the other one, we can put that to the tourist part, and then ask for some RAPS money.
So,
See, that department is very good and effective at putting that part of their RAPS application. And then we haven't I will, then we kind of have more, I don't know, an agency that it fits, agency that does it, or a department that, more so than just the fairgrounds, you know?
We talk about the county, suicide awareness, we talk about the county sponsoring that. What department in the county is sponsoring suicide awareness? Is that, we don't really have a social services, is that victim advocate, is that, who is it that is sponsoring suicide awareness in the county?
Well, right now, it's been the
Fairgrounds Department
fairgrounds.
came up with it. They came up with the idea. Their
That doesn't
employees
really
did.
fit.
So that's how it started. That doesn't mean it's the right place for it, but that's
Right.
how it started.
Well,
I mean, I
That's a
guess
good
we
question,
thought,
Paul.
Yeah,
here's,
let's,
see, I will withdraw the original motion.
Okay.
And how about I make this one? How does this sound?
Let's try again.
So we're gonna take the Cheese and Dairy Festival amounts, reduce them to $10,000, and move it under the tourism budget.
Okay.
And then for the suicide awareness, I think we're just pulling it out and unless you want to leave at $1,000 under fairgrounds to give them just enough to get started with getting donations to come in, and then if they can make a go of it, that gives them a chance to do it and gives us a year to figure out if this is going to be an ongoing event.
I'll second it.
what was the firm amount then on the suicide awareness? 10 and 1?
10,000 for the Cheese and Dairy Festival moved under the tourism,
Okay,
and then $1,000 for suicide awareness, where it's currently at.
okay,
That gives it a budget line item, and that allows them to get started to collect the donations, and then if they can get it as a viable event on its own.
Well, but it also allows that as RAPS tax, if there's a RAPS tax application for that, then we as a budget opening will change what that RAPS tax amount.
Yeah, I don't think we should kill it. I think we should just
Yeah.
structure it so that it can still happen, but yet it's got a control on it.
what about the updated expense for
That stayed
Cheese
in
and
the
Dairy
fairgrounds.
Festival?
We just took that
That, we're
out.
taking that out,
We
okay.
take that out, we reduced the original to 10, move it under tourism, and then that's the same thing, that they can do RAPS tax on that.
Was this updated expense for cheese and dairy, was that above and beyond the 28,000?
Yes.
Yes,
So it was more expensive than what we had budgeted?
yeah.
All right, we have a motion on the floor.
And it's been seconded.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we take for the Cheese Festival, move it to tourism, but only allow $10,000 for that. For the updated expense for Cheese and Dairy Festival of the 8,500, we are striking that altogether. And then also for suicide awareness, we're reducing 55,000 to 1,000 with the, when they need extra or think they need extra, they can come to the council for that. Is that correct? Is that the way we want to state that?
Or the RAPS tax.
Or the RAPS tax?
Correct.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I want to know what the clerk's going to write down on that. Did you catch up on that? Should have recorded.
They're just gonna put its timestamp in.
I think we might have to make a motion to increase the budget for the finance office, 50,000 for overtime for Cameron.
My staff would love that, but we're good.
All right.
So I'd like to go back to the executive budget for a minute, and I've been thinking about what we talked about on travel. And I know he's not
page,
gonna like this, 98, but I think that travel needs to be better prioritized, so I would like to reduce that travel budget by $2,000. I think that's fair. It's an increase a little bit over what it's been in the past, but it's, takes it down a little bit. So I make a motion to reduce the executive travel budget by $2,000.
Second.
Which line is that? Is that just all together?
Yeah, it's all gonna be in the
Altogether.
230 account, so.
What-
230 is
What
I see.
page was it?
I believe it's 98.
So you can just take, Cameron, to make that easy, you take meetings and conferences, UCMA and UAC from 55 to 45, and official business travel from 35 to 25.
So from 11.5 down only 2,000? You know, collectively, from the 230, or the, no, 230s is only two of them, 55 and 35. That's the 9,000 one?
Which is
Yeah,
double what it's been.
Yeah, that includes cost of official business travel, which it sounds to me like that should be meetings and conferences as well. But anyway, I'd like to see that prioritized by that office, and so that's why I make the motion.
Okay, we have,
The only discussion if we're gonna have discussion now, is that it still gives the executive the opportunity to come to the council and request that he can go somewhere. That's not say he can't go anywhere, let's just say that he can come and request, and that'd be fair.
Exactly.
And I moved to amend that motion and take that back to the original 4,500
for the both of them,
for both of them.
reduce it to half for the both of them, correct?
It's 9,000 and then take it back to the
45?
4,500, which, how it was within the past couple of years and fine, or a couple of years ago.
Reasonable given inflation and the cost of travel.
Well, it's gotta go up.
Well, if they need to come back and ask for more, they still can. That's what budget openings are for.
I think it's okay, but I think we gotta just sit here and know that travel and stuff like that's went up in the last 3 years, and so let's let this go up instead of just dropping it back to where it was. Let's move it up to be more realistic, and then go ahead with what I suggested of if there's something really important that comes up that we need to send people to, then we do it. Just give permission and off we go.
I agree with Gina's amendment because yes, we can have budget openings, but is it, do we need to do a budget opening for, keep doing this for more requests of money?
Yeah.
But it's, like you say, do we need to?
Yeah.
Now, hang on.
Yeah,
Need to versus actually doing it.
yeah,
The request can be there. We can either vote on whether we're gonna have the budget opening for that or not.
okay. But what I'm saying,
But still, as a council, that's what.
That's right.
That we need to make sure that the money is spent wisely and that the money, money seems to be like the controlling factor in making sure that the county's business is done here in the county.
I don't disagree with that. But what Gordy is saying is, are we putting it so low that we are, having to do more budget openings on that? Because I totally agree that's with that, but how many budget openings do we want to do in a year?
That's why.
But what does a budget excuse me, go ahead.
I was just gonna say is, my thought was to be more realistic, that if 2 years ago we had it at 45, and the year before that we had it at 45, and now we've watched all this craziness with fuel, everything you go to do is 30% more than it used to be. So
That's where I'm coming from, is right there.
So then let's split the difference and go to 6.
I can handle that.
Smart man.
So amend the motion to
Get it done,
be
man.
total of $6,000.
Second.
I'll agree with that.
Okay.
But I wanted to say one thing. What a budget opening does do, and a request for something, increase whatever it is, then it becomes transparent and you tell the people, this is what I am using it for.
Yes.
More so than a bigger number, and I can do whatever I want with it.
Yep, and I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
So we got a motion and a second.
Motion is second.
Motion and a second. The motion and the second is, and do I need to state amended? Or did we all agree on the,
We accept the change.
okay.
Yeah, it was unanimous
Okay,
consent to the change.
consent to the change of the travel, meetings and conferences for 5,500, and the travel for costs of official business travel of 3,500, which totaled 9,000, and we are going to reduce that to 6,000.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, can I make a quick comment?
Sure.
Just, I didn't really hear it discussed that the council approved the executive office travel budget for about 9,000 for this year, and currently to date, we're at about 8,200. So we've Yeah, so we'll probably have to come back next year.
Okay,
Well,
that's
We
fine.
might need a course correction.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's
so-
great,
They're
yeah.
gonna see how good of a salesman you are. That's the bottom line of it.
The other thing in the executive budget, and I apologize, I don't have the page on this, but I know that Cameron's familiar with it because we talked about it in the budget committee. I move that we move the city manager expense that's in the zoning budget. It's account 2418622. It's for 3,200. That we move that to the executive budget where it was last year. It seems to me like that's a much better place for it than in zoning administration.
City manager.
Yeah. City Manager Association, it's
Okay.
Association,
the
okay.
local city managers, it's all part of a group, it makes more
Why
sense to
is
put
that?
it there. Why is that in I don't know,
That's weird.
it just,
I think it was moved with,
The City Managers Association is a group of all of the city managers and a number of other managers, like the manager of the health department and the manager of the transit district. They get together once a month and talk about issues. A number of years ago, when Josh Runhar was the Director of Development Services, he volunteered to have all of the dues and the money paid by each of them. He volunteered to coordinate that, and since then, that department has coordinated it. All of those agencies pay dues. They go into our bank account, and then we pay the bill for the lunch every month. It's been that way for many years.
So that's what that is then,
And
it's just,
it's been managed by Development Services for years, but it was for some reason in the executive budget, and that's why I just said, why don't we move it over to Development Services, because they're the ones who've been managing this for years. But it doesn't matter, I'm fine with it coming back into our budget if you think that's more
So
appropriate.
are they doing both managers and planners?
There are two separate ones, and I think that's why Josh volunteered to coordinate it, because he was already coordinating the one for the planners as well. So there's a planners breakfast where all the planners from various cities, the university, the state, they all get together once a month also for a breakfast meeting. And it's handled the same way, where each of the agencies pays dues, goes into our bank account, and we pay for the breakfast bill. But everybody's paying their own way, but it's just going through our books.
to me, it just makes more sense to have it in the executive budget, and it's, I think, easier to find when you're looking for things, because it, logically, you're like, manager, so that's why.
Well, then let me ask, does the executive, you go to both those? You go to the planner's breakfast and the manager?
I go to the city manager's one, I don't know, maybe half the time, and the planner's one, I think I've gone once a year to that one.
But we're still, that was the purpose, it's just all managed through one account through, I think Development Services, they got enough to do.
That's what I was thinking too, they're
You
very
know,
busy.
personally, I think that they're swallowed up to bother with that. I'm saying that, to me, that'd be an executive duty.
Suggestion that we do it.
Executive.
Okay, so you have made a motion?
Does the
Yes.
training?
I'll
No, I'm saying
second
they
moving
just,
that.
they run the finance, they do the planning, they take care of it for them.
Okay, so we have a,
But the Development Services do what they're falling behind on.
what's the name of that?
Maybe they can start catching up on their stuff.
Association.
Dirk needs another job. Just let the executive sign it to Dirk.
He's got both of them right now.
That's right. Dirk, good man.
All right, so we have a motion that, and it's also been seconded, that we transfer the city manager amount, how much was it? Do we know?
Yeah, 3,200.
3,200 from the developmental services
Zoning
to
administration.
zoning administration to the executive. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
I have a couple more things, I'll be quick. Victim services, I wanted to check with you, Cameron, I wasn't exactly sure where to look for this, but I understand they received a $240,000 grant for mental health. Did we get that in the budget?
No, that's not in here right now.
Can we add that in?
Yeah.
And as part of that also, they have asked, so they don't have to come back to a budget opening, if they could move $50,000
Have a,
from their ARPA childcare fund to a rent management.
well,
And I don't
Actually, he
exactly
does.
know where to find that,
the library had a big change.
you
in it
know?
last
We
year.
got it.
I'm not super familiar with their,
Harold, do you have a good handle on that, right where that is?
How to do what you
Just typed in library on search.
That's what I did, and it took me to page 4. Is that where you're at?
Yeah, that's,
nor it is in
Okay.
Google.
Then we gotta go down lower on, go to the
jumping within,
library fee.
within 2 years, you're jumping $113,000.
Yeah,
I'm saying,
okay, that's what I said. By recollection, I was thinking that was all in the same spot, but I was gonna double check.
way over the previous years.
Well, they put a full-time employee there, didn't they?
they were
Is that
trying to
what
go
it is?
full-time.
They put a full-time employee there.
I'm on page 147 for that.
Are you now? Is that where the detail is?
So I think, is that all in your 480 account, Harold, I think?
Yes, I think they put the rent mortgage in 450.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah, 147, isn't it?
Yeah.
so right now you've got $4,100. This is on page 37, by the way. You have $4,100 for the emergency assistance in the budget, and right now there isn't any money in the special grant expense. I think we were looking to see how much got spent to the end of the year and wanted to then amend the budget in our first amendment next year.
Yeah, I think what she's talking about is the ARPA funds we received. It's in a big chunk, but I have it broken down.
So that would be in your 480, it's $1,025,000 that's in this year's budget. In next year's budget, we haven't put anything yet because we were seeing where you spent it out to this year, and then we wanted to amend it into next year.
I just want to make sure it's.
Or do we need to put it in there so that it's there and you don't need to worry about it at the first of the year?
Yeah.
So that's where I was going to, is how much, I mean, we can make an estimate and part of it, we kind of went to that strategy and with several other grants too, is because we end up amending it anyway, because we have to carry everything over that wasn't spent, so that has to get measured out. But I'm assuming you'll be spending some right early in January, so it would be appropriate to have some in there.
And so how much did you want to move, Gina? So we're going to put in some ARPA funds under the revenue and then adjust that the 450 account?
Terrell,
It goes in 450 account.
Or whichever account.
Let's start, which one, so we're talking about rental assistance? You were.
yeah, rental assistance. She wanted to change it, take it from the childcare assistance and move it to the rental assistance.
And we don't have.
Okay, both of those are in 450. I think your other big chunk that's the $1,025,000 was all the training, first responder training and stuff like that you had.
So how much do we need to do?
I don't know that we need to move, because it's all in 450. We could change,
In 450?
Yeah.
yeah, I think both of those are in the
So
same
you think
account.
that's okay?
Yeah,
You don't need to transfer it
I don't believe so.
because they're in the same line item?
Yes.
It's just.
Good
a
one.
million.
Yeah, thank you, Terrell. We need to be very careful with that kind of thing.
But we will, in both cases, we'll be measuring how much of that grant is left at the end of this year, and we'll be saying, this is how much we want to carry forward into next year. But we'll have to do that in amendment next year to know that amount. We could guess at it, and then we would come in an amendment next year to true it up in any
Make
case.
sure she has that money, before there's a budget opening, so
Yeah.
we need to make sure that there's.
So in the emergency assistance, there's 4,100. What's the timing on the training conferences that you were?
They're going to be in the spring.
In the
So they'll be
spring.
before our fiscal year ends.
So, an amendment in March, are you talking March, or you're talking more like May?
Well, I'm already paying, I submitted a PO just the other day for the peer support training.
Uh-huh.
So I want to try to spend some of that this year. And then
Right.
I'll need some probably by January. I can't wait till.
We could put 100,000 there and assume that there's at least that much that'll carry forward of the $1,025,000. On the emergency assistance, we already have a guess of 4,100. I don't know, is that, that total budget was 20,000 altogether anyway, so I don't know.
And I thought the money that I received for ARPA was through December 30th of 2020.
ARPA funds are still eligible, but we've got to annually budget the funds.
So I didn't need the whole amount because I thought it was for the part.
Not to change the subject,
Right.
but
So how much do you want us to put in there,
how's
20?
the salmon going? Pretty good for
I
you?
probably want 100,000.
You done it-
100,000? Okay.
You done it a couple of
480.
times?
Need more.
So does that take a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the motion?
So the motion is to, are we moving it then?
I'm adding it in.
Adding it in. So the motion is to add $100,000 from ARPA into the Victims Advocate Victim Services Rent Management Fund. Is that correct, Terrell? Okay.
So, to add 100,000 and move it from the budget victim services to the ARPA rent management.
No, it's coming from ARPA
Okay,
and going into the Victim Services Rent Management.
gotcha. All right, have a motion on the table, people. Explain it again, Gina.
The motion is to take $100,000 in ARPA funding and put it in the budget for Victim Services Rent Management Fund, Rent Management Account.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we move $100,000 from ARPA funds to the victim rent management account. Right?
Yes.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Cameron, I had another question for you, and then I had one more question for council. I didn't know where exactly the lesson is, but we had talked about, and Dave, you can probably remember, did we ever get funds put in for, it's like payment in lieu of taxes, but it has to do with the Native American lands? Remember that Jeff Scott told us about, we talked
Yeah, I
about it?
remember that number, I brought that out. We
Wasn't it like 249,000 or something?
pretty close, 240-something thousand that we should have already received.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we
Oh,
got that and that it's
yes.
in a budget.
Yeah, we received that into this year.
Okay.
We just went into the general fund.
It could be
Well,
spent
no,
for
I mean, we have to
anything.
restrict it, so
Okay.
we'll show that we received it, and it'll be restricted until the fund is set for appropriate.
Okay.
Oh, I thought we could spend it on anything. That's what
It's,
they
yeah,
told us.
it's,
Oh, the
in
lobby,
UAC.
yeah, no, we
it's,
can,
there's
we
no,
can.
no
I-
major, you
we had
can't,
two
we just have to
different
spend one on
Because I was thinking the opioid thing, but no, we have anything but lobbying. We
Right.
can't spend it on lobbying, but anything else we can. We have to receive it.
So where is that included in the budget,
So
Cameron?
that, so it depends on how you want, because we received that this year. We can
Okay.
recognize that as revenue in '22 and
Oh, so it's,
expenses in
Oh, I think
'22.
that they were gonna give us some next year, weren't
The
they?
second half of it
The second
is,
part of it.
is coming
Two
shortly.
tranches.
I'll double
There's
check on that.
2 payments of it.
So they half and half?
Yep.
And you might have to ask for it?
Is that the LATCF?
Not the
Yeah.
second time. The
but
second
yeah.
time, we don't have to ask for it.
But
It's
just
just,
show up. I
it's
have
just
a
2
hard time
payments. We've
believing
already
that
asked and we got the
dollars-
first,
I can't
the
believe
first
they'll
one.
just send you some money.
So, yeah.
You ever known anybody just send you?
Do you want me to,
Yeah, local,
do you want
some
me to
tribal,
text your email? Is that
tribal
thing?
lands or something like that is the,
Picture of that and stuff?
Trying to remember where we brought that into.
Here, just because they're you or you, here's some money.
pardon me?
Maybe miscellaneous grants, I'm not even sure where we brought it in. We did, the total was 249 is what you're thinking?
Well, I know, I can't, 240-something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we got like 120 something. Or
For
one-
this year?
yeah,
We
so
got-
there
And
must
so
be-
next year will be the
make
same
a big
amount?
difference. Yeah,
We should have gotten 240-something this year. We get 240-something next year. It's 400 and something thousand that we get total.
oh, it is, I remember
Okay.
the 240 number.
No, it's 400 and
more than
something
that.
thousand.
I will check on that, and then I'll email everyone about the amount that we, because I know we have
I'll
received
take a
an amount.
picture of that, of the UACs. They gave us the whole breakdown that I brought last time. just
Yeah,
didn't
I actually have that. Let me see if I can
make
just
it,
pull
but
it up.
I can take a picture and make sure everybody knows. It's unencumbered,
Right, like I said, except, so we have plenty of expense for it, right?
based on the BLM land that we have in our,
Yes,
and population. And it's our population in this county that actually boosted that amount.
Helps it up.
Because the BLM ground, we just don't have hardly anything. So,
Think the good Lord,
Yes, yes, it's the one
Well,
time we paid
remember,
out.
we're down to UAC, and they said that one county has 96%
Yep.
of its land mass.
That's right.
They were getting 4.5 or 4.8 million or
Yeah,
something,
that's
they were
probably
getting
one of their-
4.3 million.
One of their major.
Yeah, so it is 452,576.48 that we will get in total. We have received our first payment. That's the contract.
I'm glad you guys.
So do we need to put the other half of that in the budget?
We could, yeah.
Okay. Do we need a motion on that?
You were down at UAC then?
Then that we amend the budget to include what's the name of that fund?
It's LATCF. I can't remember.
LATCF,
I mean,
money from the treasure.
it's actually a
treasury
subset of ARPA
I can't
funding
remember
is
the
what
whole
it
name,
is.
they just refer to all the acronyms too, so.
fund. Yeah.
Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund is what that stands
Find
for.
the minutes somewhere.
It's a funny, it's really a funny name for really what it is. Yeah, but that's where the funding mechanism come from, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Want to restate that again, Gina?
It's just a motion to add the LATC funds into the budget for next year.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded that we add the LATCF funds, the other half, into the budget for next year. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I'm not opposed. I just have a question.
Sure.
Just to be clear then, do you want to reduce use of fund balance where that can be used for any expense of the county, or did you want to just hold it as funds for a specific
That's a good
purposeful
question.
use later?
Council?
Can we hold it till we find some worthy purpose rather than it just going nilly-willy anywhere? Or is that wrong?
Well, you put it in fund balance, then it goes through the proper channels for us to hold a budget hearing and be able to pull it out, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the
Not a bad
proper
idea.
way to
Fund
do it, rather
balance
than
and
have
then-
it sit somewhere and it get whittled off.
Good idea.
Okay,
Good idea.
I like it.
Good idea, Nolan.
All right. Anything else, people?
I have one more thing.
Okay.
You've said that 4 times.
I said I had something, not.
My one more, my, at least for
You
tonight,
okay, Mike said a lot.
my last thing tonight is I want an explanation on the library department's jump.
Library Department, what page you looking at?
147.
147.
Some more books.
Well, or was it, are we also going to a full-time employee?
Yeah, she's moving to full-time too. That's what I remember. Is that what you remember?
She is already, or she
I think she's moving.
is going to
that.
full-time?
She was not full-time, she was essentially working as a full-time employee, but we weren't giving her benefits, so we corrected that.
And that was,
She hasn't been moved to full-time yet, has she? Are you aware? No, I don't. I was gonna say it's funded and prepared for January. It's proposed in the budget for her to move as a part-time to a full-time employee.
Does she do full-time work there?
Yeah, she's basically working full-time because of the amount of work to do, and she's a department head, and she's the only department head that I know of that's not benefited.
So plus, we're moving to full-time, plus then there's how many part-times? Because we got
What page are you on?
147.
Another 50,000 for part-time.
so we have some part-time employees, and now we're going to a full-time.
How many employees do we have in the library right now?
Do you recall that? There's
Just 3 part-timers.
3 that are regular, there might be, yeah, plus herself.
Guess what I'm saying is, I've talked and asked a lot of questions, and a lot of people have flat out, we have a library?
Oh, yeah, we got a library.
Well, I know, but what I'm saying is, I
Sounds
want
like
to know the value of it, just to have it. Do we have it to have it, or what? Or is it one of those, I don't think it is, but is it? I guess what I'm saying is, how, is it being used? Are we just helping a certain community, or is it really valuable to the whole county?
We can put her on the agenda and have her come and give a department report, tell you all the numbers, where people are coming from, all the details.
She came a couple months ago and talked
Yes,
to
she
the
did.
council.
She was here a couple of
I
months ago.
honestly think that they get more use on the south end because it's in Providence than anything on the north end, especially with the North Logan Library, and Smithfield has a library, but they also get a lot of usage from electronic books from people that live in the outward parts of the county, like Clarkston or up in Cove or those areas. So it would be good to have her come and answer those questions that you have.
I think the question you got, David, is one that's been bouncing around in my mind all the time is, and I don't know the answer because I'm not that much of a library person, but, is the library now good? I see Logan City putting millions of dollars into a library building, but it almost appears to me that I don't ever go to the library and I got all the reading I can do off of the internet. I think that's kind of what Dave's talking about here, and I guess somebody needs to educate me really well on the importance of the library.
Is it helping those that maybe don't have access to the internet or something, or
I don't know.
is it, what's, I guess, you know, who's it serving?
I know they have a well-attended story time. That's what she's told the board. I'm on the board over there. I'm not exactly sure what clientele exactly it serves. That's a good question. I don't know that they really track like age or socioeconomic status or anything like that, but it is getting used and people go there even though it's small. So, and like I said, the electronic books are checked out a lot and there's waiting lists for books.
I have been told there's a lot of older people that go to the library to use the library computers, stuff like that, so I'm sorry, I just don't understand. I could
And
not
well, I
answer-
bring the same question up, you know.
I couldn't answer your question, I don't know.
Well, I just saw such a stark raise and, okay, we're taking someone full-time and it's something that even in the community, who's even, you know, who's using this? Or is it, do we have it to have it?
No, Dave, that is actually worth taking a look at, really a close look at to see who it's really benefiting. I wouldn't object to that. I think that's a fair idea.
Didn't that come about back in the old library wars of, back, you know, back when Logan City didn't want, I don't remember where they were talking, Logan City didn't want anyone to come to their library, all the county was coming to the library, but the dynamics of what a library was back then is very, very different. And so I don't know, I'm wondering if we're getting, if that value is really there, or is we better to have, not just put the money into some online service and have everything available that people could, you know, those ebooks, whatever it may, I don't know what we can really do to make sure that that is, get a bigger bang out of our buck, so.
The only thing I'll say is if we've got a full-time person that's, she's being full-time and she's never been given benefits, then I think we're cheating her. And, you know, if we do keep the library there, then I think the suggestion that we go ahead and we give her benefits and go on it with that. But I would like somebody that's good on libraries to come and convince all of us that a library is super important.
You know, I'll go along with that for this year and do that, but yeah, okay, then we need to see, I want to really hear from what it's all about.
Do we know how many,
Providence come and talk to you too, because
Yeah.
they're in part of it.
do we know how many
Who was that?
counties
The mayor
have their own
Providence.
library? Do we know how many counties have their own library?
Yeah, one in Lewiston, where else?
Salt Lake County for sure has one. They have a
Right,
huge
but-
system. Weber County, I think, does. I'm not sure.
Davis.
Yeah,
Well,
Davis
you
County
know,
does.
Again, I hate to always be a burr under the saddle, but again, this is a policy decision. We have a budget in place for us now, and we need to have some time to decide whether or not we want a library or not, and if we decide we don't want it.
But I bring it up as it's my question as to why are we funding this in excess? We've jumped up quite a bit in a year.
Gordy explained that as far as
Yeah, if you take
if she's
an
working
employee-
full-time and not benefited, then
If you take an employee and you give them benefits, whatever salary you're paying them, you have to understand that 50% more for benefits.
Maybe you got some.
Amy, have you have something to
I just want to make a clarification because I don't want there to be a confusion, especially in a public meeting. So our librarian is a part-time status, which does not receive benefits, which means she's working 29 hours, well, less than 30 hours per week. Now, does that mean that she maybe has more work to do and could use the extra hours to get it done? Possibly, but as far as what Cameron and I are aware of, she's not working full-time hours and not receiving benefits. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Very smart clarification.
Yeah,
Thanks, Amy.
thank you.
So we review that,
That's my question.
yeah, I said, we
Where
review
did
that in
the,
finance. If
budget
somebody's listed as
increase
part-time, are they
from?
reporting more than 30 hours? And she has
I
not
think it
reported
was
those
the budget
hours.
that come from the executive is what I'm guessing, and
She turned in,
that's that, but
I think she turned this budget in as a department head, didn't she?
they're long before that. I don't know, I'm just saying that
So is she saying that she been told she's going full-time from a part-time status, or, and why would she put this into the?
Yes, the problem is, she's a department head, and she's trying to run a department as a part-time employee and manage her employees and the department. She oftentimes has to cover for other employees. So we've asked her to serve as a department head for a very small amount of money and no benefits, which I don't think is fair.
and I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think we should leave it the way it's proposed this year, and then we all know that this is something to discuss next year,
Okay,
and then let's leave it like that, and,
It is a lot easier to go forward than backward, though.
no, you're right.
Make sure you know that.
Well, you'll be the chairman next year.
Oh, gee.
Don't forget it.
One more thing, this is maybe a big question, but
okay, just before do we need a motion for
I'm sorry.
anything that we've discussed? Okay, thank you. Okay,
So as I was thinking about next year's salary, I mean, we set a public hearing for this year's salary adjustment due to the clerk saying he's gonna go part-time, but we should probably consider what we wanna do in this budget right now for next year, so that we don't have to have another public hearing about that salary, but it will be set for next year. So, do we need to put in here that it's a part-time position? What do you,
I don't-
can you help us with that, Dane?
I don't have enough detail to
So that's,
make any kind of a decision.
that's gonna depend, because elected officials' salaries set by ordinance. So it's gonna depend on what you do. If you just change, and that's something we maybe need to talk about, what the goal of the council is for that, before that next meeting, so we have something in place. But if you change the salary by ordinance, that will remain in ordinance next year. It doesn't revert back when the new term starts. That's what it's gonna be set. So
Okay, that's what I
there's different
wondered.
options for how you actually do that. If there's a different, you, by ordinance, say if you're working part-time, you have a different salary. There's some code section that lays out how that works, that the council may want to, if that's the goal here, look at that, or just look at changing the salary. That would, at some point in time, if someone goes, if you just change what the ordinance says for the clerk's whole salary, when there's a new clerk, or if when our current clerk decides to go back to if he decides to go back to full-time, then need to do a new ordinance if the council wants to make that representative of the work that's being done. So I think there's some nuance there that probably needs to be discussed by the council of what the actual goal is before we.
I think you should leave it in the budget, so if we need to hire a clerk, but it's already there in the budget for the new clerk if they come on.
But, yep,
Okay.
I agree, Nolan.
Just thought we needed to bring that up so that we were all clear on.
Because if he doesn't work full-time, he's not using that, but we have it there in case, as a council, we find that it's necessary that there becomes a full-time, or whatever goes in there, then we haven't got to come back and change the budget for the salary on that. It's the way I understand it. Is that correct?
I think that's wise, Nolan.
I agree.
Okay.
All right, do we need any motions or anything on that?
Nope, it's already in the budget, so.
Okay.
So, everybody?
I'm done.
So then I would make a motion.
I'm
Oh.
Councilman Erickson.
Have you got another thing, Councilman Erickson?
There's just something that doesn't feel right. Even though, you throw the money in there and everything, I don't know, there's just something doesn't feel right.
I agree.
Yes.
And I want to say a lot more than what I will. So I'll shut up right now and share it next week maybe.
You don't mean that you don't want your name in the paper like you're always putting your hand on my thing and saying, just quiet?
Maybe.
I think that's a good idea, speaking from experience. So,
Okay, Paul.
I will make a motion that we approve the 2023 budget as presented and amended in this meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the 2023 budget as has been presented with the amendments that has been approved by the council.
I have a question on that. We want to make sure that this entire document with all of the transaction detail is included in the budget.
I will take that as a friendly amendment and include it in mine.
Okay.
Do I need to restate that then? No, okay, very good. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
I am so happy for all of you.
All right, who wants to go out and let the white smoke up?
Do what?
Oh, you're gonna be in the paper.
This is
You're
almost
being
like,
looking for now.
this is almost like when one, well, I won't say anything.
You're gonna be in the paper. That's paper quality then.
Oh, my
Bring
goodness.
us donuts next meeting.
Okay, and as we have done that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.